redesign.
There
That
are
sound
sorry.
good? Okay. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the bylaws, as a lot of you have on today. We have three separate documents. In three of these documents, one of them is the up-to-date version of what the ad hoc committee on the bylaws has recommended. It is at the top, the confidential and privileged page. That's the version that we recommended today for first reading. We then will go back to the ad hoc committee, take feedback from all of you, and make any edits and updates that we have to do. Then we have a page, which could be a little confusing now that I'm looking at it. 1 second. Give me 1 second. Then we have a page that is recommended by the Council of Great City Schools. 1 second. I will go to that. One is recommended by the Council of Great City Schools, and one is the original bylaws. So in the bylaws ad hoc committee, it had members. I led the committee as the lead, and then Chairman Jones and Board Member Mercado was there. We had legal counsel support from Sarah Rappaport and Marianne Carroll, along with staff from PPSD, which was Dr. Dylan and Lisa DiMartero, who's Chief of Staff. And during the ad hoc committee, one of the main things that we tried to do was clarify a couple of sections. Now, with the Council of Great City Schools, one of the things that they recommended was a lot of operational pieces that they believe the school board should focus in on. If anyone doesn't know, the Council of Great City Schools is the professional development vendor. And it talked a lot about communication between the board and community, communication between the superintendent and the board, communication between board staff and the school board. And in a lot of that, the bylaws committee thought that it would have been best to move that into a separate governance operation policy and focus the bylaws strictly on high level strategy, not strategy, but high level, an overview of high level what board bylaws are all about, which is legally binding, but it typically focuses in on the legal authority and purpose of the school board, the election and appointment of officers, the duties and powers of the school committee, and then like committee officers and rules of order, things along those lines. And I had actually covered that here. If you look at the ad hoc committee bylaws first reading page of a cheat sheet, and it just breaks down the legality of what bylaws are for, and then also what the governance operational manual is typically for. So in a manual, typically that focuses in on the board and superintendent's working agreement, communication protocols between staff, board member onboarding orientation, things along those lines, and roles and responsibilities for the superintendent. So I'll get to some of the things really quick that the board had went over and recommended updating. I know a couple of members had asked about the redlining. The reason we did not do redlining with the original bylaws is because it just looked so messy, because we was getting feedback from the Council of Great City Schools, just as well as we was getting feedback from the ad hoc committee. It just would have made everything look messy. So if you compare each, it makes a lot of sense. But what I'll say is, when you look at Article 1, one of the main things that we focused in on is reciting the law, which gives the school committee a lot of power and authority over the school operations. We also spoke a little bit about and updated the first paragraph to focus in on making sure we said that the board delegates to the superintendent different responsibilities as the time goes on. If you look at the second piece of that, we have the mission of the board and the mission of the school committee. That piece was recommended by the Council of Great City Schools to focus a little bit more on student outcomes, ensuring that we have a strict focus on that, just as well as the guardrails. That is in Article 1. If you look at Article 2, we left that piece there that just talks about the authority piece of the board. And then we went to Article 3, which talked about the general powers and duties of the school committee. And in that piece, the committee recommended simplifying this article, removing the bullets that was there, and really put some strict information of reference in the state statute And then also, we had recommended some clarity according to Title 16 in the second and third paragraph, just to avoid confusion for when the schools do in fact return back to local control. That was recommended for clarity reasons to ensure that, as the John Hopkins report said, there's not mixed governance, that everyone understands the role of the Providence School Board, which is to govern the school district. So we wanted to make sure that that was pretty clear in that, so that the community knows and we all know, and it also sets the groundwork for the school district to know that the board is the sole governing authority for the school department, nobody else. If you look at Article 4, the committee recommended maintaining alignment with the Providence Home Rule Charter. We organized it a bit because the original one was kind of bunched in. So we wanted to really recommend updating that section, making it more clear and easier to read. Article 5, you'll see that it talks about the duties of members. Legal counsel had recommended that the responsibility for monitoring and managing the superintendent's evaluation process does shift a bit, to reassign that to the president, but to allow the secretary to assist the president in that process. Now, the reason of that is because I guess they said that that is a strong responsibility, and no school districts in Rhode Island, I believe, does that, or anywhere else. And that's typically a duty of the president. But they wanted to make sure that the secretary assists in that process, and the president may delegate that back to the secretary. And then also we recommended removing something out of the duties of the members page, which was work collaboratively with the superintendent, the finance department of the city of Providence to govern the district's budget. We wanted that to align with state law, so we ended up moving that. As you look at section 5.5, board member concerns about employee performance, that was a section recommended by the Council of Great City Schools. So the committee said we think that that was pretty clear and makes a lot of sense as it pertains to board members being able to communicate. We will go back to the drawing table about that. If you look at Article 6, the committee recommended maintaining language with a few key updates. Business meetings, I know a lot of board members had a lot of concerns about a clear process designating at PCTA auditorium as a secondary location. So as we know, we have a lot of members here, a lot of members of the public here on today. And a lot of people are concerned about the capacity issues when we do have hot topics on our agendas. So we recommended that we add in PCT as a secondary location in the bylaws automatically in their auditorium. I think I have a typo here. In the overflow room, we are asking that the basement, which is at the tech room, I believe, that we have that as a secondary overflow space when we do have meetings here and we're at capacity, if we are not able to shift it. Workshops, this reflects the board shift toward district management to governance. We decided to really crank that down. Actually, the Council of Great City Schools recommended moving a lot that was in the workshops piece originally to really focus a little bit more on policy, high-level strategy, and how we can use the workshops to connect more with the community. That was something that was done a lot more with the board under local control, and it focused on like really micromanaging the superintendent. So we wanted to just shift that a bit to focus more on student outcomes and involving the community. The agenda piece, we'll hear today from Board Member Hughes on the agenda redesign to focus more on student outcomes. Only thing we recommended, and Dr. Dillon had said that I guess you all had spoken about it at the meeting, was to recommend superintendent comments to change to superintendent updates. And then also a process we are recommending, but we're not there yet, about if board members want to submit topics in order to keep the president from being a gatekeeper, maybe because other districts do this, each agenda will add at the very end a section of where board members are able to submit what they may want to discuss at an upcoming meeting on the agenda, and the full board would vote on it. Evaluation and guardrails. So the Council of Great City Schools recommended adding section 726, board self-evaluation. We'll get there very soon. Also, the board will have to establish guardrails for itself, and we recommended putting that in. That's guidance from the council. And then in summary, the ad hoc committee on bylaws recommended a first reading of these revisions for final adoption sometime in November after feedback on today. And then lastly, you'll see in the back that, the Council of Great City Schools recommended adding some sections. So board member concerns about superintendent performance, board member concerns about non-superintendent employee performance, delegation to the superintendent's role and superintendent evaluation. All of those things, I believe, and the committee believe, is focused more on communications and operational things. And we recommend moving that to a separate policy manual focused in on communications and then also the superintendent. As I'm looking at this, I may have sent our clerk the wrong information as it pertains to the Council of Great City Schools recommendations, because these are actually two of the same pages, I believe. So we're not able to see the Council of Great City Schools. Oh, are we? Might be lying. No, this actually is from the Council of Great City Schools. I'm lying. And the Council of Great City Schools made some of these edits. So I'm going to pause a bit. I'm going to take some feedback from members. That was definitely a lot of information. Hope I did not confuse anybody. But Dr. Williamson.
So first, could we just clarify is there's two copies that look very similar? Which of these is Council of Great City Schools, the one with like typewriter font?
Right here, yes.
Okay. And then I had a question about the proposed changes, and it just occurred to me, it hadn't occurred to me when we were, when I was looking at it earlier, but when it says all concerns should be brought to directly the superintendent and, sort of be left there, that it says concerns, these bylaws mean any actions by a district employee which are potentially illegal, in violation of board policy or harmful to the district or the board's reputation. And this might be a question for legal counsel to answer. Are board members mandatory reporters? And if a board member, I know there's some board members who work at schools, if a board member is a mandatory reporter by virtue of some other employment, if we're not mandatory reporters by virtue of being affiliated with the school district, would that supersede this?
So yes, you are, depending upon the nature, Yes, you are, depending upon the nature of the allegation. And I think if you continue to read further, Steve, it kind of addresses that. When a board member has concerns about the performance of district employees which relate to employee, student, board, or community safety, board member will notify us when appropriate. So that would cover your mandatory reporting obligation.
Okay, good, thank you. Yeah, I think I missed that bit. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I did notice that as we were going through, so it is in there.
And this section was recommended by the Council of Great City Schools. And we just decided to keep that piece in there.
That was my.
Okay. Any other questions? Board Member Hughes?
Thank you so much. I have a couple of mostly smaller questions, but just I'll try to go in order. Can you talk a little bit more about Article 3, which I don't think that is a new or a more robust or different reading than the original 2018 or our current bylaws.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more about the committee's reasoning for adding these things?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I wanted to make sure that we did, so if we look at the John Hopkins report, it talked about the mixed governance responsibilities and how it just created a lot of bureaucracy. And I guess one of the words they used was there's too many chefs in the kitchen. And by doing that, what happened was there was a mixed up in, how can I say this? There was a mix up in who the superintendent reported to. There was a mix up in how we as a school board actually function, because a lot of things went through the city. And when you look at the state law, I don't think that it actually, in all actuality, that that's how the process actually goes. So according to Title 16, it says, unless the authority is otherwise delegated, the entire care, control, and management of the school system is rested with the school committee. So what does that mean? That means that the board is the sole governing authority for the school district. So one of the things we did was we recommended moving the bullets out. And the reason we recommended moving the bullets out was because it did not cite all of the responsibility of the school, but it just sort of cherry picked some of the responsibility. But we thought that in the first paragraph, if we reference the state constitution, Title 16, and exactly how the board is vested with statutory authority to govern the district, that it would bring about clarity. But in the second paragraph, it talks a lot more about the specifics of things that typically become political when we're talking about CBAs, when we're talking about independent legal counsel. Literally, there is a lot of cases publicly, and even in Rhode Island, I think the most recent one was in Johnston, on whether districts have the right to independent legal counsel boards, or does it have to go through the solicitor's office? And we thought that it makes sense to specify that and specify that authority of the school committee. But then also when we get to the third paragraph, this was a concern that I thought made a lot of sense after I had received feedback from the school committee about the city's report for the return to local control. And I thought that it made sense to specify as well some of the things that typically and should not take place when the schools does in fact return to local control. So I thought that it made a lot of sense to add this language in there to be a bit more direct and clear, so we don't repeat when it returns back to local control the same process that got us in state control.
Okay, I guess my one piece of feedback would be that I think I don't disagree with the language that is here, but I'm not sure it adds any, it doesn't change the scope of what we can do either way. So I do agree that removing the selective bullet points is probably better so that we're not leaving certain things out and creating confusion. There were a couple places in, I know the first one I noticed was in section 4.1, the organizational meeting, saying that it shall be held at the first business meeting of the calendar year, which shall occur on the first Wednesday of February, provided that all 10 members are duly sworn. Are we to interpret shall as we might do that, but we don't have to do that?
I think we discussed that. I'm sorry, I think we should shift that to may. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. I think it may have been the intent. I did listen to the committee's meeting, but just wondering if it's necessary. There's there and another, I think it's business meetings, section 64.1. Is it typical or common? Are we potentially like boxing ourselves into specific meeting dates?
I'm so sorry. Really quick. So organization shall switched it to may, and then did you go to?
And then, well, it's a similar issue. So I guess my broader question in the section we just discussed in 6.4.1 business meetings, by specifically designating a day of the week and a time of the day, like, is not that we couldn't do that, but it further down the road, if another board wants to, for whatever reason, say 7 of the members can't make Wednesdays, but they all really like Tuesday and they want to switch all the meetings to Tuesday and they really like 5:30, not 6, like, are they, violating their own bylaws and practices by doing that? Like, I guess I'm just asking for your committee to consider, like, whether that prescriptive timing is necessary in both of those spots.
Got it. Okay. One second. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you're saying consider for 641 whether we box ourselves in on a specific date and time. That's what you're saying.
I guess my question that you could take back to the committee if
Mhm.
you so choose would be, is that typical practice for school committees in Rhode Island to be that prescriptive within their bylaws, or do they leave it a little more open-ended and leave that as sort of a practice outside of the bylaws?
Mhm.
And
Makes sense.
sorry, I'm trying to go quickly. I think I'm a little confused still about the language, and this language isn't necessarily new, or pieces of it are not new. In section 4.4, changes to bylaws, as we're talking about changing bylaws. Amendments to these bylaws may be proposed by any board member during an annual review of bylaws at the organizational meeting. Amendments to these bylaws shall require prior notice to all board members and vote of at least 7 all board members. Revisions, additions approved by the board after 2 readings. So, just so I understand what it is that we're doing right now, currently we have this ad hoc committee that's exploring the bylaws as a whole, but moving forward after that time, the procedure would be for a member to introduce a concern or a review during the organizational meeting, yes?
Yes, so it's funny because that was a concern that I had. But I think the key word in this, amendments to these bylaws may be proposed. So the may leaves it open legally for board members to be able to suggest changes at any moment. But it may be proposed at an annual review of the bylaws at the organizational meeting. So we did shift that to May for legal purposes, but did that answer your question, sort of leaving that open?
I think so. I'm
Okay.
just trying to understand the intent of that bringing there.
Yeah, and that's the typical, so when you look at the regular bylaws, that was the typical practice. So a lot of this stuff in here, we just sort of updated and modernized in the regular bylaws. And also the Council of Great City Schools also recommended keeping a lot of this, like changes to the bylaws may occur or be proposed. So a lot of these things is from the original bylaws. So we didn't get into the weeds of everything, but we said there should at least be a foundational piece of this is the expectations because, for example, with the meetings piece, if we leave it up, or if we leave it just open, there may be boards that say, okay, we're gonna be, quarterly. And that's something that should not in fact take place. So having the bylaws, it's like this legal governing document for the board on how they sort of proceed. And I think if any boards that come after us decide that they want to change it, I think that the section 4.4 piece should be proposed by them and there should be a process of changing that.
That makes sense. Continuing to move on in section, I guess that's 6.4.1 business meetings, starts on page 7 and then goes into page 8. And so when I read this second paragraph, promote accountability, transparency, and community engagement, the board shall attempt to convene for 5 meetings each year in the board's geographic regions. Each regional meeting shall be held in a public school facility within the corresponding region, et cetera. Is the intention that those would be separate and apart from our regular business meetings, or is the intention that those meetings would be in place of, like, for example, does that mean that tonight we might be at Hope High School, not here, or does that mean that in addition to our regular monthly meeting, that we would also have a regional meeting?
Yeah,
That isn't clear to me in the language, but I'm wondering what the committee's suggestion was.
absolutely, good flag too. I think we were supposed to say May, so the regular meetings of the board may ordinarily be held. The board may provide an overflow room, and then also as it pertains to the piece that you're talking about in the second paragraph, to promote accountability, the board may attempt to convene for 5 meetings each year in each regular meeting. So it's really a may, and it's really at the discretion of the board. But I believe that the intent here was to make sure that the school committee isn't just sitting on the 3rd floor in this Eiffel Tower having our meetings, but making sure that we're getting to all 4 sectors of the community and being able to hold our meetings there just in case certain communities don't feel comfortable coming here and just being a little bit more accessible. I think that was the intent there. Did I answer it? Or no?
Not quite, almost. So I'm just, but the intent would be to shift up to 5 of our meetings, attempt to
At least, yes.
regular meetings.
Yes, to the community.
I think she's asking, correct me if I'm wrong, if these regional meetings were replaced
No.
for this, or it's additional.
Yes, correct. Yes. So it would be regular school board meetings. So if you look at with this original option, so business meetings are regular board meetings. Section 641, business meetings, these are regular meetings, so that's speaking directly geared toward these meetings. So when I put this language in here in the second paragraph, when we adopted it, it's speaking directly towards these regular meetings.
I think if that's the intent, I might add that in the second line, shall attempt to convene for 5 regular business meetings each year. It is in the section, you're right, but it wasn't, I think it's a little confusing. I think with that said, that I will just mention that we've discussed at previous meetings, just I think if that's something that we're looking to put into our bylaws, and certainly it's a shall attempt and dependent on technology, et cetera, just being mindful and perhaps asking the district to provide us with a cost estimate of staff time and equipment time and all of those things that may come with relocating. If we did that for some of our meetings, I know we've put a big investment into these school boardroom spaces, so I just want to be mindful of that. As a member of the finance committee, I will shout out for Dr. Williamson. I feel like I have asked a bunch of questions. Let me see if I had anything else that was
Oh, no, take your
particularly,
time.
and please, if folks want to interrupt me or ask to make questions on this piece, I'm happy to do that. I'm
Yeah.
just going through like the sections.
Yeah, no, absolutely, take your time, and I think, I just want to comment on that. So when we say to promote accountability, transparency, and community engagement, you know, we I think as a board, historically as a board, there's been this lack of engagement with the community, and that's our primary job. So I think the intent here is to make sure that we are able to get to all 5 corners of the regions of communities that we represent. But then I think the main piece is going to be really legal language here, because the technology piece was definitely brought up at the ad hoc committee meeting. And I think that's why we wanted to shift it to May, but I think that we were not able to shift that language for some reason. So I'll make sure that it says may attempt to convene, or like you said, shall attempt to convene, something along them lines. Or no, maybe not shall, that's what we have, I'm sorry. Any other questions by board members?
6.4.4 special meetings. President may call a special meeting whenever necessary and relevant to governance matters or at the request of 5 members. I'm reading that to mean the president could individually choose that, or if 5 other members other than.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And I think the only other part that was a little confusing was the consent agenda part. I know we're still working through that with the 73-hour notice for pulling items. I think typically the board doesn't have access to the entire agenda beforehand, so I don't know how, I don't think that's a realistic suggestion, because unless we're changing sort of our practices of how to do that.
I was gonna say with the consent, I was actually waiting on the you guys' recommendation
Okay.
today to get some feedback on that. So we really didn't touch the agenda piece of the bylaws. We're waiting on all of you, and then once you all adopt, we're gonna adopt, then we'll sort of get more into that piece.
Was that piece, was this language was from the council's recommendation?
Is that, I think it might
Because
be
it wasn't in
the,
our old one.
it's not in our old one?
The 7.2.2 consent agenda.
Okay, just disregard that.
Okay. That's why we do the first reading. I have no further questions. Thank you for your patience with my many
No,
questions.
no, thank you. Dr. Wilson?
So I was just gonna say in reference to that first section, 4.1, that just strike the whole middle section of that sentence, and they just have to be the organizational meeting shall be held at the first business meeting for which all 10 members are to support.
Okay.
I have it. I made a
Yeah,
note of
do that.
it.
Okay, I'll get it. Thank you so much. Any other board members? Secretary Fox?
Yeah, after going through the community listening sessions, I think something that I heard very clearly from our community is that they want to receive information more regularly from the board, stuff that we receive in these regular business meetings. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to put something into the bylaws that says, and we've talked about this previously as a leadership team, I've talked about it with some members, that says, regional members should be hosting either monthly or bi-monthly meetings with their region, relaying information that we get at these regular business meetings. I don't know if that belongs in the bylaws, Charlotte, I don't know if you have something to say on that, but I feel very strongly about us giving information to our community. I heard that loud and clear over those 19 listening sessions. And yeah, I'm wondering if that should live in the bylaws so that after us, people know that community engagement is super important and it's centered in what we do.
Yep, I'll take that to the ad hoc committee. Any other board members?
I just had, actually, now that I'm rereading the section on the consent agenda, I think I may have misread this initially. So,
Really quick, Dr. Winston. So, this piece, you can disregard this. I believe the agenda redesign committee is gonna have some updates on that.
okay,
But you can really just disregard that. We're not even, and then you can just submit some, recommendations.
okay, all right, great.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? There being none, can we move to, the next piece, which is the goals and guardrails? Dr. Dillon, are you able to come up and share some information pertaining to that document? And Charlie, would we, vote to move these back to the?
No,
Okay.
they're just not for read anyway.
How are you, Dr. Dillon?
Okay,
Doing good. Right, we're gonna, get some information really quick on the drafted goals and guardrails, and then we will, go to the agenda redesign, and then we'll get right into public.
It's on. Okay. Can you hear me? Perfect. So what you have in your packet is a compilation of the vision statement, the goals that were clearly landed on during the Saturday session, and then additional goals that I think the committee wanted to discuss further this evening, as well as guardrails that were developed during the Saturday session as well. So the first piece at the top is the draft vision statement. Guided by empathy and justice, PPSD students graduate as confident and competent change makers, ready to solve complex issues for themselves and their communities. During the Saturday session, we discussed the portrait of the graduate, which will be coming in front of you soon. And I added here just a snippet of the vision of the portrait to show what I thought was really clear alignment between the vision that the students, staff, and leaders had been working on. I just thought it might be useful for you to see. So that's why that's there. Moving down is the first goal. Goal 1, early childhood literacy. The percent of grade 3 students who score proficient on the RICAS ELA assessment will increase from 22% May 2024 to 50% by May 2030. The rationale for this is grade 3 reading proficiency is one of the strongest predictors of future academic success, graduation, and workforce readiness. Currently, fewer than 1 in 4 Providence students are proficient. Improving grade 3 literacy is a high need because failure to meet this milestone creates lasting gaps and high leverage because strong early literacy accelerates learning across all subjects and reduces the need for later interventions. Do you want me to go one by one, or do you want to stop after each one?
Yeah. You go ahead, sure.
I'd say until you get to the fourth one, because we were all in support of the first 3, if everyone, that makes sense to everyone?
Okay.
Sure. Goal 2, elementary readiness and secure skills, grade 4 milestone. The percent of grade 4 students who score proficient on RICAS math assessment will increase from 30% in May 2024 to 45% May 2030. The rationale for this is grade 4 math proficiency is essential for developing number sense and algebra readiness. Fewer than 1 in 3 students currently meets that expectation. This is high need because math gaps compound over time. It is high leverage because mastery at this stage boosts middle school performance, strengthens science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM, confidence, and expands access to advanced coursework. The third goal, middle school readiness for high school. The percent of grade 8 students who score proficient on RICAS ELA assessment will increase from 15% in May 2024 to 30% in May 2030. The rationale for this is middle school is where Providence students experience the steepest academic declines. Grade 8 literacy predicts success in high school credit-bearing courses. This is high need because students without these skills are at greater risk of dropout. It is high leverage because improving middle school literacy strengthens readiness for high school, PSA, SAT, and graduation. Those were the first 3 that were solidly agreed upon at the Saturday session. And then we had conversations at the Saturday session around providing an opportunity to measure and monitor post-secondary pathway options. And so there are 2 of those in here. The first one is PPSD graduates with an industry credential. So this is referring to CTE, or career technical education. The percentage of students who graduate from PPSD with an industry credential will move from 14.6% in June 2024 to 25% in June 2030. The rationale for this, students enrolled in a program that provides for an industry credential have some of the highest graduation rates in PPSD. In fact, they had 100% in 2025. This rate is considerably higher than the average PPSD graduation rate of 79.4% in 2025. Upon graduation, students who graduate with an industry credential have job opportunities with higher wage potential and have increased readiness for post-secondary opportunities. Moreover, these opportunities facilitate and support key skills heard in the listening sessions: complex communication, understanding multiple perspectives, analytic, problem-solving, and industry-specific competencies. Do you want me to stop or continue?
Yeah, can we stop there really quick before I call on board members? Can we explain, are you able to explain why the baseline year is listed as 24, given that we have 25, 26 RICAS and SATs?
When we first developed the goals, RICAS had only been 2 days old for us, so we didn't have them. So we were using 2024 as the baseline.
All right, are we able to, now that we have it, update it?
We can.
Okay.
We can.
Does the board agree with that? Because I think we should use the most up-to-date numbers to set these baseline goals.
As I do the interim goals for you, I'll switch over to the 25 now that we have them.
Okay, and then one other question. So go to the, I was looking at this yesterday, I wanted to write it down. It states that the percentage of grade 4 students scoring proficient in RICAS math will increase from 30% in May to 45% by May 2030. So for clarity, I reviewed the RIDE assessment data portal from 23-24 and 24-25. And according to the published data, grade 4 math proficiency is at 22.6% in 23-24. And in 24-25, it's at 23.6%. Is there a typo there?
I don't have the my worksheet with me right now, but if there is, I'll correct it as I'm changing it to the 25 data.
Okay, I actually have it. Oh, can you pass this down? Don't. And I think that's the only 2 questions I have. That's the most recent information of 4th graders.
Yes, I'll update the grade 4 data.
Okay, Chairman Jones?
Thank you, President. My first question is, I'm just curious about some of the thinking behind industry credential versus industry recognized credential versus RIDE recognized, credential. Yeah, start with that one.
So the rationale behind the industry credential, industry or industry recognized would be the same data point for us. The RIDE recognized are also the pathways that RIDE has now approved. So we're all working to get all of the language aligned on that. So our baseline in 2024 June, which we can now update, was 14.6%. And the rationale was so that we're using what's readily measured, and what we are using in terms of when we're presenting on tap or when we're presenting to RIDE, as well in terms of our progress. So I just was consistent with that. Certainly if the board would like a different data point there, that's open for you to decide.
Thank you. And then my second question is, the other goals had a higher increase than the CTE goal. I'm curious about the thinking behind that. We know that, industry credential can be OSHA, right? So, you can get an OSHA certification or Safe Surf, I believe, certification online, right? And so I would think that, some of these can be, the CTE goal could be more ambitious because of that, even though we want to, get those stackable credentials and, get the kind of best opportunity, right? But I'm curious, what's the thinking behind that? Is it more expensive?
So a couple of things. If you would like just a certification that is readily available, such as the online OSHA, we can certainly change this. The baseline percentage would also decrease. Here, we're talking about the students who fully complete the 3 in a series credentialed courses. So that's what's here. But again, this is your board goal. If you prefer to move to the other, we can. One of the things that we had discussed on the Saturday session, if you recall, all of our students are going to be graduating with the computer science credential, right? So we already would be at 100% for our graduates because they have to do that in order to graduate. So we were moving for a more aggressive credential here, and that was why. And also we have to think about the funding for additional programs. How much funding might we have for additional programs if we're to add them? And the amount of space that some of our CTE programs takes and the equipment is quite extensive. So if you wanted to do OSHA or computer science or, a stackable certificate like that, we'd already be at 100% of our students because they need that to graduate. So I was trying to provide you with one that was more aggressive.
Okay, yeah, I definitely like, having a more aggressive one that, if you have just an OSHA certificate, you might not get a job, but if you have the 3 stacked together, then you have a much better odds. But I do think I would encourage us to be a little bit more aggressive. We all have seen the news right now. Bachelors and masters are getting jobs at the rate we haven't seen since 2015. AI is decimating entry-level positions. If you have a skill and you have that bachelor's, right, you're going to be able to get a much better opportunity. And I think that's not going to change. I think that's going to be a trend we're going to continue to see. So
Again, this is a board goal, so you can certainly change or increase that. Just remember that to do that, it's going to be a more significant investment in time and money that would have to be taken from somewhere else. So, there are definitely potential in order to do that, but that there are also things that we'll have to discuss about, okay, if we are increasing this and it costs X amount, where is that funding source coming from?
absolutely. Thank you.
Dr. Williamson?
So just to clarify, what you're using here as an industry credential is a credential which by itself provides somebody with a credential that they could get a job.
That's correct.
So I think that's great. I think that's certainly the way. I think that would be the intent of this. So maybe there's something we could do with the language there
Mhm.
to a complete job ready credential or something like that, yeah.
Definitely.
Just to clarify what we're talking about.
And I think when we get to the interim goals, that will help too. So these are just the baseline goals, and then next time, once I know what your main goals are, then I'll be bringing the interim goals for you to all, provide feedback on as well.
And I do know from conversations we've had in this committee that like one of the big limitations for a lot of the stuff that they do across the street here is limited by like the facilities and the space. So what they had talked about in some of the meetings was that there might be ways to increase the throughput, but it would involve potentially having night classes or something like that, which would, additional funding, but not as much as building separate facilities. So are you in conversation with them in terms of seeing like what just in case the board does want to be more aggressive about it, have those conversations already sort of happened?
We have not had conversations regarding night courses, but we have had conversations about expanding CTE offerings and thinking about what our high school population numbers look like in the future, which are lower than they are now, and how that might actually play a role
Right.
In CTE expansion, right? So as that's decreasing, you might have space and ability to increase in the CTE area. So that has been more of the conversation. We have just submitted to RIDE for 5 additional approvals for new CTE programs. And so we will know within the month whether or not we're able to expand to those. I will know that before we get to the interim goals, so I might even come back to you and say, hey, we are able to increase this even more than I thought we could based upon what we learn in the next month.
Thank you. Any other questions? Board Member Hughes?
Way brief for this time. I have a question about the population that we're defining in the way that this goal is drafted. So just for the general public, so the concept behind these goals is that they all have to be SMART goals, and I'm going to mess up that acronym right now, but one of the things we have to have is like an understanding like who it is that we're talking about in here. And so I think when I read this, I'm picturing the graduating class of each year, and that's who we're trying to measure that outcome at the end of each year to see that progress. So my question is, what percentage of our, I don't know how to phrase this exactly. So not every student is in a credential
No, that's
program right
correct.
now.
That's correct.
So the percentage, I guess I'm wondering like, if somehow you were to get 100% of the people in the programs to get the credential, what percentage of the total graduates of a given year would that be?
That number is going to change.
Shift over
Yeah,
each year.
over time, exactly. So I can get you the specific numbers, but it's probably about 25% of the graduating seniors who are fully enrolled in courses that are 3 course stackable CTEs.
So then, based on that answer and looking at this drafted goal, where we're saying that in June 2030, 25% of our graduates would have that, this sounds like an extremely aggressive goal because we're saying, unless I'm misunderstanding, that sounds to me like we're saying that the goal would be for every student in those programs, or do you expect that percentage to shift significantly?
So currently we have about 15% of the students who are in the programs fully completed with the full certificate. Our goal is to have the students who are fully enrolled to increase in the number who actually walk away with the full certificate. Now, all students who are enrolled walk away with the 3 stackables that lead to an industry credential. So that's what we're working on. Makes sense.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to maybe clarify it a little bit. Maybe that'll come out more in the.
We can use the
goals.
end size when we do the interim goals, so we can do end size and percentage, and then I think it would be clearer.
Yeah, just to understand, because not all students are enrolled in the
No.
program in the first place, and that's okay.
No,
It just means
it's
like,
okay.
just so we all understand
Yeah.
like what.
Absolutely.
numbers are.
Yeah, for example, at Mount Pleasant, we have an early college program. So those students, many of them are graduating with college courses and credits for college. That's not a stackable certificate, but that is still a wonderful thing to graduate with, right? So I think the point here is that we want to have different programs to reach different learners and what they want for their future pathways. And this is for the group of students who would like to go into career and tech programs and walk away being ready to be hired in those pathways. You're welcome.
Any other board members? All right, there being none, I think we have two more. Now, really quick, are we deciding on today the next one that we want to go with, or?
It would be my hope that you could give me a little direction so that I can then build the interim goals for you to
Okay,
then decide on the interim goals.
okay. All right, you can finish and then after
Okay.
we'll go into that.
So the next one was a conversation we also had on Saturday, the Saturday session with Council of Great City Schools, where we were talking about the portrait of a graduate and using that as a potential way to measure student outcomes. The portrait of a graduate will come before you, as I noted, and it has 6 different areas that it measures. When I was thinking through what was listed in terms of the draft vision statement and the conversation about what the community wants based upon what was shared by board members, I landed on providing the civic and global engagement section of the portrait of the graduate. And what I have here is the percentage of students who graduate from PPSD who demonstrate proficiency on the portrait of a graduate civic and global competence will increase from 0%, because we haven't started to measure this yet, it hasn't been adopted by you yet, to 70% in June of 2030 on the portrait of a graduate civic and global engagement rubric. The idea of this particular competency is that students will become strong advocates, change makers. They'll be able to give back to the local community as well as the global community, which seemed to come out loud and clear in what the community members were seeking for their children as an outcome. And so the rationale, civic and global engagement competencies are essential for preparing PPSD graduates to live and contribute in an interconnected world. The goal is high need because students must be able to navigate diverse perspectives, act ethically, participate meaningfully in civic life, and thrive beyond high school, and high leverage because these competencies strengthen critical thinking, communication, and cross-cultural collaboration, skills that drive success in college, and career, and community settings. Establishing the portrait of a graduate and civic and community global engagement rubric provides the district's first system-wide measure of these skills, allowing educators to embed them in coursework, service learning, and career pathways. By setting a target of 70% proficiency by 2030, PPSD affirms its commitment to developing academically prepared and civically engaged graduates who are globally competent and locally responsible. I've linked the rubric there. This work was the work of a large body of individuals. Students were a part of this committee with Dr. Anye, as well as educators, teachers, leaders, members of the central admin, as well as community members. So many voices went into the development of the portrait.
Got it. Any comments by board members? Secretary Fox?
First, Dr. Dillon, thank you so much for putting these 2 additional goals together. I just want to speak to the community quickly. These are the goals and guardrails that we're establishing to lead the district for the next 5 years. That's what our community sessions, this is kind of what we came up with. Those first 3 goals, 50% of the community elevated numeracy and literacy. So that's where those first 3 goals come from. I really love that these last 2 goals really encompass the other 46%, which kind of elevated life skills, employability, critical thinking, social emotional growth, and college and career. So thank you for that. One thing that I would like to elevate also under the global, the civic and global, goals. I would love to, if it's possible, as an interim goal, like that ethnic studies bill that the kids been pushing would be a great measurable asset along with the rubric. Just want to elevate that. I feel like that is a way we can also kind of measure civic and global engagement, specifically around different diverse perspectives. So thank you for putting these two goals together. And I think the 5 together really encompass what we heard over the last month.
And just as a reminder, the interim goals would be student measurable outcomes. So we would need to think about what we would want in terms of the student outcome within that course.
Any other board members? Are we comfortable with goal 5?
Yes.
All right, everyone is comfortable with goal 5, so we can begin that
Give them
process.
the optional goal
Yeah,
then,
we can
and
skip
we'll
that.
move on to guardrails.
I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Yes.
My understanding at our workshop meeting on the Saturday was that we were aiming to only have 4 goals and that our task today was to decide between goals 4 and 5.
Yeah, I think, I think there was a big push for, at that meeting for a process with something along the lines of a portrait of a graduate. That was something Vice President Newman, who's not here, was really pushing for. So I think we was deciding on a 4th goal between the PTSD graduates and if I'm pronouncing it right, but credentials, I'm just saying credentials, CTE, which is really what it's geared toward, and then also this portrait of a graduate. I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, school board, that the board feels comfortable with actually adopting 5 and including both of them, which is about 46% of the community's recommendation to go forth with. And Chairman Jones, you want to?
I think I just want to name that I think in our discussion in the workshop and at the recommendation of the Council of Great City Schools, that they recommend that boards adopt 1 to 5 goals and preferably no more than 3. So by adopting 4 goals, like we are, or 5 goals, I think we would be at the outer limits of that. And just, that doesn't mean we should not do that. I just want to name that what that means, as Dr. Dillon referred to earlier, is that any goal that we adopt, that we are then going to realign resources, meaning time, talent, and treasure in that direction. And so that means if we are pulling for 5 goals, we may not be able to hit as aggressive targets as we might if we had fewer goals. So that is okay if that is what we choose to do as a group, but I want to be clear that the more goals we adopt, the less time, talent, and treasure we can dedicate to any one of those specific goals.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dr. Dillon, can you confirm, I think at our last meeting, you had said that the district was already working on the portrait of a graduate, so resources was going to be pushed toward that?
So the district is working on all of these goals, but in terms of the board, because you are the setter of the budget, the approver of the budget, right? And these are your goals. These are really helping you determine how you want to use those resources
But right now, Dr. Dillon.
Are we working on it? Yes, we
And
absolutely
is there
are.
money right now dedicated toward this?
No.
But was this something that even before we met, the district was working on?
Correct.
Okay. Chairman Jones?
Yeah, in our CTE committee, we had AJ do a workshop on student outcome focused governance, and he gave us a clear kind of he was like, look, if you guys don't have a CTE goal, this committee shouldn't exist, right? He said, if you want this committee to exist, if you want to, if you all are passionate school board members about CTE and think that this work needs to continue at this kind of high level on the board, he's like, then you have a marching order to go into that next meeting and fight for a CTE goal, because truthfully, a committee shouldn't exist, that isn't aligned with the goals, and so I don't know if I speak for the rest of the committee members, but I speak for myself. I think CTE is extremely important, not only for our community. It was, I think, 35% of the community feedback was employability and getting a job, right? And then I also think, not only is it a reflection of our community, but also the times we're in right now. CTE is the CEO of NVIDIA, which is one of the fastest growing companies in the history of the world, recently said the next millionaires will be plumbers and electricians, right? So I think it's pivotal that our kids have that opportunity and that access to those the future millionaire jobs of our day.
Secretary Funk?
I think it's also important to elevate that community has spoken. And if we decide to go with 3 or 4 goals and we don't elevate the very important social emotional aspect that community very loudly elevated to us, that's a problem. We're going to be repeating the harm that community already feels, that they are coming to these meetings, pouring out their heart about what they want for their kids, and then we're just checking a box that we talk to them and not doing anything about it. So I strongly advise that we go with the 5, as I understand, and I said this in an email, I think Dr. Dillon was on it, the leadership team and the Council of Great City Schools, that I think it's very important to have the 5. It gives a very well-rounded kind of goal kind of set of what the community wanted and asked of us. I understand that does mean that, resources have to be allocated and we have to look at the budget more critically. And I'm prepared to do that. And I hope the board is prepared to do that, because our goal is to elevate the voice of the community and value what they asked us to do. Dr. Dillon, on that Saturday, you did speak about CTE and how it wasn't going to be a issue to monitor. Like, it's something that can you kind of bring that to the.
Yeah, so all of these goals are really important, and they're all things that we're working on and that we will continue to monitor. I think the point of the Council of Great City Schools is just when you have 5 goals, that just means you have $100,000 and you have 5 goals. That means you're dividing the $100,000 across 5 goals instead of across 3 goals. It also means if you have 10 staff members, you're dividing the 10 staff members. So it just means we would be going probably a little bit slower in terms of money and resources toward each of the goals. And I think that was the point of the Council of Great City Schools. So if the board recognizes that and that's the direction the board goes in, then when we do the interim goals, then we address them accordingly, so they won't be as aggressive if there were 3 goals, if there are 5 goals.
I'll take one more question, and then if we can move to the dog rail. Going on with our agenda, Dr. Winston.
So I guess my question is, to the extent that we don't want to adopt goals where we're pulling in opposite directions, right? So, but it does seem like a lot of these goals do kind of stack, right? So early childhood literacy is going to contribute to literacy, increased literacy for grade 3 students will hopefully support increased literacy for grade 8
Yes,
students.
it all rolls up.
Increased numeracy and increased, ability to understand and deal with numbers for grade 4 students will inevitably help with, with people who want to go on and get a skill or a trade and have to understand, engineering or, pounds per square inch or any of that, right? And then for civic and global engagement, it seems like those skills stack into that as well. If you have good English language skills, your ability to digest and think critically about a newspaper article or something you find on the internet, and if you're comfortable using statistics, you're going to be able to. You're not going to get fooled as easily by somebody citing a bogus statistic if you know how statistics work and you understand all that. So that's a very long-winded introduction to my question, which is, do you think that it seems to me that if we were to adopt 5 goals, we're not adopting 5 goals that are pulling in opposite directions? And do you think that it's possible that we could integrate some of the stackable kind of components of this into the curriculum in such a way that it's not maybe as heavy a lift as it looks like? Or do you feel like, alternatively, and this is also a fine, whatever, I'm asking for your professional opinion. Do you feel like if we're going to introduce the civics goal that we need separate coursework that's going to require new instructors at a level where it's really gonna be, you know what I mean? Like, so is this, how much is this adding to the plate if we have 5 goals instead of 4? Is my question.
Okay.
My long-winded question, which I apologize.
Okay, no, I know the question. So in terms of the elementary numeracy and literacy, those are goals that we're very much focused on, as always, and as well as the 8th grade literacy. I think what it comes down to, and the civic and global engagement is something that this district has been, passionate about. We have the civics courses with Generation Citizen. We have those particular events. We have many things that are led by the Office of Opportunity and Access as well. So yes, to your point, these are things that we value, believe in, and support. I think where it comes into play will really be in the interim goals, in terms of how much resources and staff we can assign to pushing it further faster, right? It's all a question about further faster. It's not about a question of, are we going to focus on these things? Because we absolutely will. These are the right things to focus on. So it really is a question about the board's tolerance for further faster. If we have, say, let's just talk about the ones we agreed upon, the early ones, the numeracy, literacy, and 8th grade literacy. If we think about those, and let's go back to that number of $100,000, and we're going to focus on those 3. We have $100,000. That means that if we're providing schools resources, it's in the amount of $100,000, and we're dividing that across those 3 grades. If we had decided that there were only 2 grades we were focusing on, then that $100,000 would, in terms of resources and staff, would be focused on 2 grades. So you'd be able to move faster, but that means that 1 grade is left off, right? So it's just a give and take in terms of where you want us to focus our talent and where you want us to focus the budget. But that being said, these are all interconnected. The literacy skills come into the portrait of the graduate without a doubt. The numeracy skills and the literacy skills both go into the CTE program without a doubt. So they are all interconnected. They are all extremely important, but it's just like when you have a budget in your home, you have to divide that among, if you're deciding if I'm going to do a makeover of 5 rooms of my house versus 2 rooms. If you're doing 2 rooms, you can probably do it faster than if you're doing 5 rooms. And that's really what it comes down to.
Board Member Mendoza? You didn't have a question? Any other questions? There being none, can you just go to the guardrails?
Sure.
Please?
Yep, absolutely. Just to remind everyone what the guardrails are and to introduce people to guardrails who are not familiar with them. The Council of Great City Schools recommends that school boards adopt 3 to 5 guardrails. The guardrails are the vision and values of the community, and they tell the superintendent what they are not able to do or not to do because they are in direct conflict with the visions and values of the community. Okay, so the first one, the superintendent shall not allow educators or leaders not meeting performance standards to serve in schools identified as CSI or redesign. Number 2, the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members most closely impacted by those changes. Number 3, the superintendent shall not allow learning environments, school policy or practices where students feel unsafe, unsupported physically, emotionally, or culturally. The superintendent shall not make decisions that have a disproportionately negative impact on students furthest from educational justice. So those were the 4 of the 1 to 5 guardrails that the board developed during the Saturday session. I have not made any changes to these. These are exactly as developed on that session.
Any comments by board members? Board Member Hughes?
Thank you, Dr. Dillon. I just want to make a recommendation for the board to share at our early October workshop meeting that we had discussing this. The Council of Great City Schools did a wonderful job. They published this document that was the PPSD School Board 2025 Community Listening Analysis document. And I would love, I was not able to find it today. I would love it if we added that to our website on the, perhaps on the listening sessions page at the top or some other place, because the Council of Great City Schools, who is providing the board with professional development right now, took all of the notes and all of the information that we collected all summer and early fall long. And that's what some of us have been referring to in our questions about, like, 50% of people identified this as one of their top 3 goals or guardrails. And so the guardrails are around the questions that we asked the community about their underlying values for us. And I just think that being able to see that reference point will help our community both see their responses reflected, as well as how we kind of got to where we are. I think that's my only comment on that at this time.
Any other board members? Dr. Williamson? Wait 1 second. Board Member Mendoza? Thank you. Dr. Williamson?
I just had one question. I apologize. I had a work commitment, so I wasn't able to be there for the workshop at the beginning of October. I was curious because I know that, and I don't know exactly off the top of my head where it fell in the analysis, but I know that that I think all of the listening sessions that I was at, people did mention transparency as a concern, and I wondered if there was any thought about creating, and this may not just be a question for you, this might be a question that my fellow board members could maybe address as well. Whether there was any thought about creating a guardrail around.
There absolutely was. That's the intent of number 2. So if that doesn't hit that, then I mean, that's a discussion for the school board, but the superintendent shall not implement significant changes without first engaging community members most closely impacted by those changes.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Dillon, that was enveloped in there. And Dr. Dillon, these guardrails will also have interim.
They will also
goals
have
underneath
interim goals.
To break it down.
So that could be underneath that where you get more granular.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking specifically just about having, I know we've had conversations on finance committee with the finance team about how do we make sure that people understand, like, budget, for example.
Yeah.
Or, so those might be sort of.
Absolutely. And
Okay,
as I am going to dive into the interim goals, I suggest if any board member wants to email me individually recommendations or suggestions, I'm happy to think about how to incorporate those.
or even like making the documents that we've used to come up with these goals and guardrails public.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say one thing. So when the community talked about transparency, I think my thing would be, what does that actually mean? Because we do have number 2, it says the superintendent shall not implement significant changes. What if the community meant transparency about receiving data, posting data on time? I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know exactly what the transparency piece means. Nor am I in the thought process of going deep into that, but I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Any other board members have any questions? There being none, I think that we're good with the 5 goals, the 4 guardrails right now. I do want to just ask and make a recommendation to board members really quick before we move on. The current vision statement says, guided by empathy and justice, PPSD students graduate as confident and competent change makers ready to solve complex issues for themselves and their communities. I wanted to see, and agree or disagree if you want board members with me, but I want to see if we can sort of make that a little bit more, give some oomph to it. I want to recommend that we say guided by empathy and justice, PPSD students graduate as confident, capable, and compassionate change makers who think critically, lead boldly, and solve complex issues that strengthen themselves and their communities. Just added a couple of words. You get what I'm saying? You have a question? Don't change. Yes, ma'am. It says, guided by empathy and justice, PPSD students graduate as confident, capable, and compassionate change makers who think critically, lead boldly, and solve complex issues that strengthen themselves and their communities. I got it right. You got it? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm trying to.
Anything? Anything wrong with any concerns? What I'll do is I'll give this page, I'll send this to you, Dr. Dillon.
Okay.
All right, listen, thank you so much for providing this section. All right, do we vote on this?
Is that pursuant to CGCS requirements? Yeah, then you need to vote on it.
Like
for
our
their
main thing
purposes.
is to adopt the goals.
Okay.
All right, so I am gonna make a recommendation to, well, I'll entertain a motion to approve goals 1 through goals 5, provided by Dr. Dillon, and all 4 guardrails identified by the school board, and also the final vision statement, the vision statement that I had just spoken about, which says, guided by empathy and justice, PPSD students graduate as confident, capable, and compassionate change makers who think critically, lead boldly, and solve complex issues that strengthen themselves and their communities. Can I entertain a motion? Motion's been, did I?
Yep, I think goes perfect.
Motion made by Chairman Jones, do I have a second? Second's been made by Secretary Fonts. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any,
Aye.
any noes, any abstentions? The motion passes. Thank you so much, Dr. Dillon.
Thank you.
I know we have people here for public comment. Gotta give the board just one last moment. We have one more item before we get to it. See, we have some young students here as well. We want to make sure we get them home for school. But we're going to move over to the item 3.7, agenda redesign ad hoc committee.
Okay, I'm gonna go really, really quickly.
Oh,
just
please
Because I
don't.
wanna
I'm
get,
joking.
I wanna get to our friends. So there is a memo posted within the agenda for everyone to view. Board members have a physical copy in front of you. This subcommittee was convened to basically explore our board agendas for our meetings and try to make them even more student outcomes focused. And maximize our time on student outcomes goals, which we just now adopted, very exciting. So in the meeting that we had, our committee looked at the most recent board meeting agenda. But if you're looking at tonight's agenda, that's somewhat similar, so you can see that follow along quickly. So our recommendations were as follows, to essentially keep item 1.0 convene meeting items. The only modification we recommended was to change the name of superintendent comments moving forward to superintendent updates and include specific topics underneath that to ensure compliance with Rhode Island Open Meetings Act. That's to provide that transparency we were just talking about a few minutes ago. We would recommend approving the agenda. For the consent agenda, you saw tonight that we chose to remove some of the items to discuss. The recommendation that our committee makes in consultation with Council of Great City Schools is to keep and use the consent agenda for as many items as possible. Any business items that we've already discussed in committee, that a committee is recommending, that don't require further discussion can fall under there. Any staff updates, minutes from the previous meeting, homeschool candidates when there are those, or other updates that might be coming from the school department or superintendent on items where the board doesn't need to necessarily make a decision, but needs to be informed of other updates. Public comment 4.0 was the stickiest thing, and essentially our committee's recommendation is that at a future meeting, we'd like the board to take this up as a group to talk about ways that we could improve public comment. As we see tonight, we have a very engaged community, and it is challenging to find the right balance of being able to do our business as a board and make sure we're meeting our responsibilities while also always being responsive to our community and allowing them to have a voice. And so there's a number of recommendations in my memo I will not belabor right now, but this is something we'd like the board to take up at a future meeting to talk about. School board member updates, we recommend that we delete and replace those with discussion items as needed so that we can be more specific, both around, transparency and open meetings. It can be tricky to have general comments and not notify the public in advance what we plan to talk about. And just a note that that might include other items that aren't falling under presentations. And Council of Great City Schools recommend for significant items that we do a little bit of what you're seeing tonight with first read and second reads of any significant things. So the first month you're kind of deliberating and talking about it, and then you're taking full action the following time. Presentations, we said to keep those as they are, but they should be only used for presentations focused on our adopted goals once we adopt those fully, the student outcomes focused goals. So in September, for example, there were presentations around access scores and foster care student outcomes. I know tonight, coming up later, we have a presentation on beginning of the year student data, which would be relevant to student outcomes. So executive session and the report out on such, keep as needed when we have items as such. Those don't count toward our board monitoring of our time spent on student outcomes focus, because those are required by law and they're also not conducted in public. And adjourn the meeting, we should keep that so everyone can eventually close their business and go home. That's all from our committee secretary. Fonz, do you have anything to add?
Nope, you got it.
Okay, I wanted to talk about public comment, but I know because of tonight, we have a crowd here. I don't think it's necessary or appropriate right now. So maybe if board members have any ideas for public comment, please send it to the clerk, who will then forward the information to the ad hoc committee. I'm gonna try to attend the next one as well. I'm gonna try to attend the next one as well to bring up my ideas, because I actually do have ideas, but I'm not gonna discuss it. I actually agree with moving school board member updates and add discussion items as a standard item. As we know, school board member comments typically doesn't happen. And then one thing I would ask that the ad hoc committee suggests is that, I don't know if this is a bylaws thing, but maybe executive sessions should be held on a different night than these meetings. Definitely when we're talking about teacher suspensions, terminations, and non-renewals.
Yeah, you just have to notice it as a special meeting for that purpose. It wouldn't be a regular business meeting.
All right, that's all I have. Any comment? Chairman Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest, maybe we can, at my job, what we started to do for our committee meetings is we set up a Slido, so that we put a QR code on the screen, and then, folks can put in comments from there. But I was even thinking we could even just put our email addresses, right? And, put like a subject title this, right? So community members can reach out to us and, we will be able to look that night or even, beforehand at the comments that community members have made that may not have been able to give their full testimony. So that's my suggestion.
Absolutely. I think it'll be better to have the broader discussion, the ad hoc meeting, and be able to really brainstorm a lot of ideas. Is that it? All right. Thank you so much, Board Member Hughes. We're going to move on to items 4.0, public comment, right to be heard. Right before we get started, I want to share something. 1 second. Muted. So as we open up public comment today, I know there's a lot of people that's going to speak. I just want to encourage the board that we will hear some stuff about personnel, and it's our job to just listen, not to comment on it, and allow the process to take place. But we are definitely going to listen to everyone on today and take what you guys say very serious. Is that okay for board members? All righty. We are going to kick off the public comment right to be heard section. Madam Clerk, can you call up the first person?
Randy McKinnon.
How are you, Brandy? That's good. Oh God. Okay, you have 3 minutes. Uh-huh.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Brandy McKinnon, and I am the parent of an 8th grader at Bishop Middle School. I'm here tonight to share concerns about the new middle school schedule that was implemented this year. It is the third schedule change we've experienced in recent years, and by far the most drastic. If you're not already aware, middle school students are now grouped into teams and pods. For example, our 8th grade class is roughly 250 students and is divided into 2 large teams. Each of those is broken down into smaller pods, about 25 students. This year, students attend all of their classes with only the students in their pod. The schedule includes 7 periods, 4 core subjects, 1 advisory, a rotation of PE and elective, and a new period called Discover Zone. Students are taught mostly in 4 classrooms near each other and are moved from room to room by a teacher. They are not permitted to walk the halls independently. I've learned this model was originally developed at Green Middle School as a way to reduce chronic absenteeism. But from a parent's perspective, the way this change was introduced has been confusing and frustrating. Last spring, we were vaguely informed that a new model was coming, but it quickly became clear that our school had very few details. I want to emphasize we have a great relationship with our principal and admin team at Bishop, and I believe that they are doing the best with the limited direction from the district. The lack of guidance was especially clear when it came to the new Discover Zone period. From what we've observed, there's no defined curriculum. Some pods are doing in-depth projects, others have study halls or extensions of existing subjects. Teachers were left to figure it out on their own, often defaulting to what they already teach, which means that some students are getting double doses of certain subjects, while others are getting something completely different. The inconsistency is not just confusing, it's inequitable. What's more, parents like myself were given no real opportunity to ask questions, offer feedback, or understand how this model would impact our schools before the school year started. While the system may be helpful for students who are chronically absent, I ask you to consider what is the impact on the majority of students who are not. The pod system greatly limits social exposure. If your child doesn't find their people within that group of 26, they have almost no chance to connect with others outside of lunch. Public school should be about diversity and backgrounds and perspectives and in relationships. There's also concern about student independence. These children are being micromanaged, walked from class to class, and aren't learning basic skills like time management, hallway behavior, and responsibility. What happens when these students arrive in high school where their freedom increases dramatically? Has there been any data collected on how Green students handle that transition? So tonight I ask you to do the following. Find out why there was little communication. Clarify what Discover Zone is supposed to be. Why is there no curriculum? And finally, gather and share data on the effects of this new model on students who are not chronically absent. What are the social and academic consequences of keeping them in such a limited environment?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really quick, Madam Clerk, if we can just flag 809 for 30 minutes. Thank you. Next person.
Nicole Arena.
How are you, Nicole?
Good, how are you?
Good. Have 3 minutes.
Okay. I'm here today to share my strong and heartfelt support for Principal Maria Petrosinelli, who has served Providence students and educators with distinction for nearly 30 years. Her recent placement on administrative leave has deeply unsettled our Saget Elementary community, students, families, and staff. We recognize the board's responsibility to ensure safety, fairness, and due process, and we offer this letter in that spirit, with respect for your role and with care for our school. Since becoming principal at Saget, Ms. Petrosinelli led with steadiness, equity, and results. Under her leadership, RICAS scores rose by more than 5% in both ELA and math, and student absences decreased over 3% this year alone. These gains reflect more than numbers. They reflect a culture where students feel seen, teachers feel supported, and families feel welcome. Colleagues know Ms. Petrosinelli as for her professionalism, empathy, and collaboration. She is transparent in her communication, consistent in her expectations, and unwavering in her belief that every child can grow. She participates with families, builds trust through listening, and makes student-centered decisions even when they are hard. Before Saget, Ms. Petrosinelli served as an assistant principal at Martin Luther King Elementary School, where she helped lead the school to a National Blue Ribbon Award, a national recognition that speaks to her capacity to galvanize a team around excellence. Her absence is visible. In the weeks since her unexpected leave, Sackett's climate has felt uncertain and less cohesive. There's a palpable void without the continuity of Ms. Petrosinelli's leadership. The timing has been particularly difficult. Staff learned of her leave shortly after a real lockdown. That was a frightening day for students and adults. In that movement, Ms. Petronelli's calm presence has always grounded the building. Learning of her absence during such a vulnerable time compounded stress and uncertainty. And asking for your review, we are not asking for your shortcut process. We're asking for a review that is fair, transparent, and timely, mindful of the real-time impact on children, families, and staff. Principal Petrosinelli's record demonstrates both effectiveness and integrity. For these reasons, the Sackett community respectfully urges her reinstatement. Our students thrive when the adults leading them are steady, trusted, and present. Ms. Petrosinelli has consistently provided that foundation. Thank you for your time, your stewardship, and your commitment to Providence students and educators.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elena Davidson.
You have 3 minutes, okay?
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Elena Davidson, and I've been an educator in the Providence School District for 25 years. I am currently a third grade teacher at Sackett Street School, and have been for the past 20 years. Over that time, I've had the privilege of working under many administrators. But I can say without hesitation that Principal Maria Petrosinelli is one of the most exceptional leaders that I've ever worked with. Mrs. Petrosinelli has been part of the Providence School District for 30 years, dedicating her entire career to our students and community. From the moment she became principal at Sackett Street School, she brought a sense of warmth, a vision, and a sense of positive direction that transformed our school. Her leadership created an environment where staff and students alike felt valued, supported, and inspired. Our students love Mrs. Petrosinelli. In her first year as our principal, Mrs. Petrosinelli already produced measurable success. Under her direct leadership, our RICAS state test scores improved markedly. In ELA, student proficiency increased by 5.1%, helping us reach our goal of 20%. In math, student proficiency rose by 6.4%, bringing us to 21.6% student proficiency. Our absenteeism rate went down, a clear sign of her ability to re-engage students and strengthen school attendance. Mrs. Petrosinelli created a thoughtful incentive program that celebrated and rewarded students for their improved attendance, which motivated many of them to come to school more consistently and take pride in their progress. But beyond the numbers, the sense of pride, success, and optimism in our school is what has changed the most. Mrs. Petrosinelli built a culture grounded in respect, empathy, and high expectations. She made people want to show up, to do their best, and to be part of something special. Since Mrs. Petrosinelli has been on leave, we've all felt the absence of warmth, unity, and sense of direction that she cultivated. So tonight, I respectfully urge you to recognize the tremendously positive impact that Principal Maria Petrosinelli has had on our school, both academically and emotionally. Her return will restore the spirit and momentum that defined our success. Thank you for listening and for considering my perspective as someone who has served the district for more than 2 decades. I have seen firsthand the difference that strong, compassionate leadership makes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zakia Milan.
How are you, Zakia? That's good. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Zakia Milan, and I'm 13 years old. I wrestle for Beat the Streets through West Berlin High School. I'm here tonight to talk about why Beat the Streets is so important and why losing it would really hurt kids like me. For me, wrestling isn't just a sport. I was in first grade when I started watching my older brothers wrestling. I saw how the discipline and focus they learned changed them. I remember watching how hard they worked, how they pushed through even when they were tired or losing. I saw the push-up challenges on Zoom during COVID. I saw how wrestling gave them confidence in the goals to keep going. It even helped my oldest brother decide to go to college so he could keep competing. When I started wrestling, it changed me too. It taught me how to take care of myself, how to eat better, train harder, how to keep going when things got hard and life was tough, how to push past what I thought was my limits. But even more important, Beat the Street teaches us about character. We learn how to win with grace and lose with dignity. When you're out there on the mat, it's just you. You learn how to fight for yourself and believe in yourself. You learn that even if you fall, you can get back up. But you also learn to be a good teammate, to support others, and lift each other up. These are valuable life lessons. The best part about Beat the Streets is that you're never truly alone. We come from different schools and neighborhoods, but we're all one big family. We cheer for each other, and we push each other to be better, and we're there for each other when life gets hard, long after the season ends and our lives move forward. Our coaches don't just teach us moves, they teach us life. They check in on us to make sure we're okay. They remind us that who we are off the mat matters just as much as who we are on it. That's why it's confusing and frustrating, why we constantly have to fight just to keep our program. Why would anyone want to take away something that helps us stay focused, healthy, and powerful? We train hard, focus on our goals, watching what we eat every day because we love our sport. But if Beat the Streets goes away, we won't just lose a sport, we'll lose our support system. We'll lose a safe space where we belong. For some of us, it's the reason why we come to school every day. Even when it's freezing outside, our life just feels too hard. Beat the Streets helps us deal with our stress, build confidence, and stay strong, both physically and mentally. Our coaches remind us you don't have to be the best, but you have to go out on the mat and make yourself a little better every day, each both and off the mat. They believe in us even when we don't believe in ourselves. That's what Beat the Street gives us, the space and help we need to grow stronger, healthier, and more responsible leaders and advocates. So please don't take this away from us. Please help Beat the Streets so they can keep helping kids like me and find our strength, our confidence, and our voice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Zakia.
Silas Murray.
How are you, Silas? I am doing well. I know we had spoken a little earlier, and you said that there was going to be other people that wanted to speak. I know, so, oh, okay, they both have signed up individually?
Yeah, not that, but the others have.
Okay, but they're not speaking, right?
They want to. I'm gonna try to speak as quickly as possible. Just go through what I can, and I know they want to share a couple things.
Okay, now, Charlie, really quick, the bylaws does not require, it says an individual may address the board only once during a single meeting, no speaker may give unused time to another. How is that program, would that be violating the bylaws?
So usually, if people don't want to speak, usually what we do is we have some submission that's either submitted to the clerk. Typically, you can't, the bylaws do not allow you to reserve time for somebody else or take their time.
Okay.
So if they would like to make a comment but not speak in public comment, it's provided to the clerk or to the board, either in writing or at a later date if they'd like to.
Okay, yeah, so this is what I'll do. You can speak, and I'm gonna put my reputation on the line. No, I'm not. I'm gonna put my reputation on the line if they can just be very brief, okay? Because you guys are our children. All right?
Good evening, board members. I appreciate you having us. So I just want to inform the board on some concerns of our youth potentially losing opportunities. We are youth development first. Our primary target is the middle school students, but as you see, we have high school students that are very involved as well. It's inclusive, it's free, it's for all walks of life. Anyone that wants to join is more than welcome. We have open enrollment, so as long as our program is running, kids can join at any time. Our daily practices are journaling, academic support, youth development, physical fitness, social emotional support. Over the past 3 years, we've impacted 646 student athletes with 442 academic and enrichment hours. Our students have also grown tremendously with the social emotional growth. And this year with our program, it's going to be very different because we're just focusing our program through November to February. Consistently over the years, we've been programming from October all the way through June. So we're very present in the school year. Our coaches are the heart and souls of this program. They give everything they can to our student athletes, teaching them life skills, bridging the gap for our students and our families to our schools to be more accommodating and support that they can give, as well as creating some of the best wrestlers in the New England area. The pathways that we give our students that we consistently put out in front of them are our trades, our careers, our services, and higher education. Opportunities such as girl-specific opportunities, exposure to college programs, 365 days of mentorship, traveling across the country, and our CIT program, which is a paid workforce development that's over the summer for 8 weeks. We use the term family pretty often. As students are trying to figure out what the next step is, we have 21 students that have coached or coaching with us throughout the years as coaches for our program. And we have over 500 wrestlers that have continued wrestling throughout Rhode Island in high school.
Hello, board members. My name is Emilio Santana, and this program has not only affected my life, but I know it's affected many others. It's provided me opportunities in wrestling, in education, and overall just my mental health. I've been given the opportunity to go out of state multiple times and face competition that I wouldn't have ever expected to face. I've been to Chicago and been able to speak to coaches that have provided me on even more guidance on how I could be successful in my life. And, you know, even if I don't go and continue this wrestling, that like I could be successful in my life. And I feel that this program has provided me with a secondary family. I feel like I have a second home, and I can say a lot of people in this room are my siblings and my brothers and my sisters, because the connection that we have made in this program is so strong. The practices, the meetings, all the time that we spend together is supportive, and I feel that the community that we have is too strong to just be, thrown away like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, fellow board members. Hello, fellow parents, fellow teammates. My name is Samuel Uedre. I'm a sophomore at EQ Academy. When I first started wrestling, I didn't think I'd make it this far. Wrestling given me the strength to be a leader. I've been a part of programs like Arise and Respect with Dr. Oni over there. The wrestling has given me the strength to be able to speak out in front of others. I never thought I'd be where I am today without wrestling. Beat the Streets has really helped me. It's like a second home. So breaking apart Beat the Streets is like breaking apart a second home to other kids. Some kids really don't want this to end. This is giving them opportunities to be where they want to be. Beat the Streets always help kids to achieve their goals. So breaking apart Beat the Streets will really hurt kids in the student.
Thank you so much, and Silas, thank you for the work you do in the community, okay?
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Janiyah Burgess.
How are you? Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, so Beat the Streets has impacted my kids' lives in many ways. We have gone through difficulties for the past 2 years, and they have been more than a second home family. Coaches has been like a father to them. They're very supportive, and all I can say is if they take this away, they don't know the damage and what consequences coming if they take this away from our kids. We're living in a generation that they're giving so many different opportunities, and not only that, there are things that are there's things in this world that is exposing our kids, and I think this will keep our kids safe. And just having this family together, supporting our kids, will prevent anything coming into their lives for their careers. Thank you.
Thank you. How are you? Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Florena. Good evening. I just want to start by saying that wrestling at Nathaniel Green has had a profound impact on my son, Emilio Santana. He started wrestling in 6th grade at Nathaniel Green. I truly believe that maintaining a wrestling program like Beat the Streets, they're a big part of the one at Nathaniel Green. And in schools, this is very important. It's a rigorous sport that requires lots of dedication, hard work, and perseverance, and it encourages them to stay active, which fosters lifelong habits in health and fitness. These kids learn the value of discipline, respect, and strong work ethic. As a parent, I can say I have witnessed firsthand how it can help, especially with their mental state. During this time, it's middle school, and they're undergoing lots of changes and growth, which can lead to lots of anxieties, and it can be a very stressful time due to different pressures. Wrestling can help provide an outlet for releasing these stresses and emotions that these children carry. It can help boost their confidence, their self-esteem, and I know it can also help hold them accountable and keep them engaged by having them focus better academically just so they can wrestle. A wrestling program provides so many benefits that extend beyond just the physical fitness aspects of it. It plays a role in shaping well-rounded, resilient, and socially adept individuals, preparing them for success both inside and outside of the classroom, or like they like to say, on or off the mat. I struggle to comprehend why we would choose to eliminate something that has consistently improved the lives of many individuals and benefited the community of Nathaniel Green as well. The program speaks for itself, especially at Nathaniel Green. What other sport or program, even the coaches, have produced Nathaniel Green with that many state champs and just a family? I support the wrestling team, and I urge you to recognize and acknowledge all the coaches and Beat the Streets and the incredible contributions of the wrestling program and the importance of it and to the lives of the wrestlers, which is the most important and which are the most that are going to be affected. The students of Nathaniel Green and Beat the Streets. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Gonzalez.
How are you, David? Please state your name for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is David Gonzalez. Appreciate you guys listening out to me. So I am currently the head coach at Hope High School, and for the past decade, I was the former head coach at Nathaniel Green Middle School. It is to my knowledge that right now they are trying to discontinue the program at Nathaniel Green. Since my time at Nathaniel Green, we have achieved and created countless memories history, I've created countless bonds with kids. We have 3 division titles, 10-time city champions, currently still undefeated. Over 100 athletes have placed at states. Over 40 athletes have placed at New England's, which is a tough feat to achieve. We have over 10 athletes that have achieved All-American status. And on top of it all, we have every year, we have 90% of our kids who go from failing grades to passing grades. A lot of people like to state that, our kids are troublemakers and stuff like that, but all kids are troublemakers. All kids need help. And that's what us coaches are. That's what we are standing for. We want to provide opportunities and help the youth. We want to make sure that they stay successful. And, by us staying in the school systems, we are creating that family and making sure that these kids are not in the streets. All right. And that's hence the name Beat the Streets. We want to make sure that these kids have, if some kids don't have parents in their lives, some kids may have struggles at home. And that's where us coaches come in. I will tell you straight, from my personal experience, I do not coach for money. I do not coach it for a job. This is my passion. This is my life. And I can't picture myself being anywhere else besides my kids' corner.
Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Hawes? Maria Enfaroa Cepeda.
How you doing? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Farah Cepeda, and the reason why I would be sad if they take away wrestling, because when I started, my grades were bad, and I wasn't that good at wrestling. And then I started doing better in school. I started getting better grades, and I started working out because of the coaches. And I realized that usually not a lot of people would be there, but when I joined wrestling, it was like I was part of a family, and that they would be there. And when I would wrestle, and other sports, they wouldn't make me feel like I was doing good, but in wrestling, even when I lost, they would be like, "Oh, you got that next time. Oh, we're gonna help you get better. Don't worry about that. A loss is helping you." Instead of making you feel bad, they would make me learn the stuff that I need to, and the stuff that I need. And it made me realize that even when bad stuff is happening, not to stop and to keep going. And it made me realize that I can do stuff when I'm alone, and I could fight back and all that, because I was weak, and then they helped me get stronger and better against my opponents.
Hi, my name is Maria Cepeda. Thank you guys for listening to us tonight. I am his mom. This year he's an 8th grader. He started with Beat the Streets last year as a 7th grader. Like he stated, we did have plenty of troubles with him, grade-wise, acting out, all that. I will say it's been a huge difference with him joining the Beat the Streets program. Just like you heard here, everybody say, the kids say, the parents say, they're pretty much a family. He does have a father, he has brothers, but the family that they get from them is totally different. They do help them with their attitude, their grades, being there, like he said, helping them, being confident, and helping them get by with everyday things that they have to deal with. I've seen plenty of change in him. He started, like he said, he wasn't that great. Nobody just goes into anything and they're great, but the belief that his team has in him and his coaches have in him push them to be better in what he wants to do, and this is what he wants to do. When he started school this year and he was told that there wasn't going to be a wrestling, it did kind of give him that, sad, bad attitude that, he didn't want to be there because they're taking what he wanted to do from him. Once we got everything situated and, we got back to at least even being able to get back to wrestling practice, was a total difference in him. His smile, just hearing that, just light up a whole room. So I would say that this has made a huge difference in him and his behavior, his grades, and all of that. And like we said, we would appreciate if you guys would just, look at what these guys are doing here. They're doing a great job with these kids and, beat the street. Self-explanatory. We're trying to beat the streets. So thank you guys for listening to us.
Really quick. Young man, I know your mom and your whole family, and I want you to continue doing what you need to do. What school you go to? I'm gonna go and visit you as well. Make sure you're doing what you gotta do, all right? All right, nice to see you. Really quick, Martha. Okay, so it's 8:09. I want to make a recommendation to the board to put down the time from 3 to 2 minutes. We have 5 other speakers, but because we are past the 30-minute mark, I want to reduce the time to 20 minutes, so it's 2 minutes. Can I have a motion? Can I entertain a motion? Motion's been made by Secretary Fonts to reduce the time to 2 minutes, seconded by Board Member Mendoza. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any noes, abstentions? The motion passes. Madam Clerk.
Natasha Rodriguez.
Hello, my name is Natasha Rodriguez. I've actually had 3 kids that on the wrestling team. I have 2 daughters. One started with the program, and now she's a senior. 2-time state champ, and this program has done wonders for all 3 of them. My son was very against wrestling, and this year he's seen the kids wrestle. Last year, he became friends with all of them, and they convinced him to join and show the family that they are. So now I have him wrestling, and this beautiful thing right here. She's a two-time state champ herself. She's a freshman she's in EQ, wrestling for Hope this year, just like her big sister. My brother's actually the coach, Coach David. I've been here, like I said, since day 1 with the program. Without this program, my kids probably do nothing. Play outside or be home all day. Any other sport, they've tried to compete and they just don't like it. Wrestling's been something they've liked since my oldest has been 10 years in the game. I couldn't ask for anything better than wrestling right now. But other than that, like the family, the friends, the kids, the parents, amazing. We're just a team. If one doesn't have, another one does. And if this kid needs a ride, we all help each other no matter what. So for me to lose this program for these kids would be devastating. I'm gonna pass it over to my daughter real quick.
Hello, my name is Serenity Rutana. I started wrestling my 6th grade year, and during that time, I had very little self-confidence, didn't know many people, so I wanted to try something new, and I met these people, and they were like family to me. They took me in, they helped me with my confidence, and built me up into the person I am today. And to hear that wrestling might not be here was devastating for me, knowing how much it means to my family, how it's been here for years, and I couldn't imagine a life without it. This has helped me so much throughout my years. It's helped me learn a lot about discipline, and it's got me mentally and physically fit, and it's just everything to me, and I surround my whole life around it. And it's hard to see that people are questioning how much these coaches put into us, and I see how hard these coaches work to see us succeed and how hard my teammates work to succeed.
Thank you so much. If you want to speak, just say something. Okay. Thank you so much.
Mateo Noriega.
How are you? State your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, good evening, board members. My name is Evan Mateo Noriega, and I will be speaking about my story. I was first introduced to Beat the Streets in my 6th grade through some friends of mine. When I first showed up, I wasn't as committed. I was dealing with personal problems at home, but also because I was around some people that didn't do me as well. By my 7th to 8th grade, I got much more comfortable with the wrestling community, and I was able to rely on my coaches from Gilbert Stewart, Tim Kaplan, and Ruben Blanco, and also with other coaches that had helped me through my journey, especially Silas. Once I entered the Met High School, it got a bit complicated for me to go to high school practices my freshman year, as my school didn't have any sports. So I took advantage of all the practices and clinics that Beat the Streets offered with no charge. As later on, I was assigned to do sports for Central High School. My first year at Central wrestling team, it got complicated for me as there was a rumor that affected me to show up to practices. When I mentioned it to Silas, he helped me out and got me to West Broadway Middle School to assist the coach, but also to be able to practice. This is one of the many stories I can tell you about how this community impacted me positively. As probably if I never got close to this community, I would probably have been just wandering around the streets with no purpose. Beat the Streets is more than wrestling. It's a family that has a hand willing to help anytime. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Eric and Josiah Mazariega.
How are you? Please state your name for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, board members. Thank you so much for having us. Really quick, been part of the BTS, Beat the Street family for over 10 years. My oldest is about to turn 20. Started off as a 6th grader with BTS. He's now in Rhode Island College wrestling for them. From a young man with no type of confidence, being bullied in elementary school, to a rising young man with honor rolls, full of confidence, exceeding in this sport, where my son here was in a charter school where I decided, along with his mother, that it was in his best interest to join the BTS family, especially at Nathaniel Green, due to the coaches, the staff members there, the type of quality persons they become in wrestling that they become. We made the choice to transfer him from a charter school into the public school, into the Providence public school, in our belief in Nathaniel Green, in that young man sitting over there, Coach David Gonzalez, and Coach Silas. They have been a blessing, not only to my family, but to all the families here. And hearing that Nathaniel Green, certain members or certain staff members are willing to get rid of a program that has been such a blessing is actually a disservice to this youth, especially with things that go on nowadays in the streets. My son here has the potential of being recruited to other high schools where we have been reached out from other coaches from different states inquiring about him. And BTS has made that possible. Coach David and Coach Silas have made that possible. So as I mentioned, getting rid of this program from Nathaniel Green is actually doing a disservice to this young community. This is a wrestling family that I know the majority of everyone here, and they can all attest that Coach David and Coach Silas will do anything and everything for this youth. It is coming from me as a present father. I commend them, take my hat off to them, and I have nothing but love for them. So I please take in consideration that Nathaniel Green is doing great things for this youth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Josiah Mazarego. I would like to say that I first started with Beat the Streets when I was really young, and I got inspired by my older brothers and by the coaches that made me feel wanted in this program, and I feel like I'm a family to them. And they helped me so much to accomplish many goals, such as getting fifth and second in New England. And I just want to say thank you to them, and I want this Beat the Street to stay alive.
Thank you so much.
Shannon McLeod. Ann Grimes.
How are you, Ann? Good evening. You are our last speaker. I believe our last speaker, correct? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening and thank you to the members of the board for the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Ann Grimes. I am Vice President of Middle Schools, a 23-year teacher in Providence, and 18-year teacher at Nathaniel Green Middle School. I am here to report repeated concerns from our middle schools. Teachers feel unsafe. Discipline issues are often glossed over so that the data doesn't reflect negatively against the schools and admins. Too many teachers across our middle schools are still having to cover 6-period classes, which is not good for our students. Newly hired teachers have little district support since the new teacher ambassador program has been put on hold. Cell phones are becoming unmanageable. We need a real solution. Yonder pouches work. This needs to be funded. There has been a major uptick in fights with students attacking each other and also threatening teachers. Students are over-tested in math and in English. Pacing guides are needed to be shifted and students are overwhelmed. We need more support staff at the middle school level to support our students, but positions are being cut, leaving us shorthanded. Some teachers do not have basic technology they need to perform their duties, such as laptops, not Chromebooks.
30 seconds.
Elmos, math department especially, no new models have been purchased recently, and working smart boards. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, we will be moving on to items 5.0, school board member comments.
I put an email in earlier to speak to Beat the Streets, but I don't know why I wasn't called.
Was it before 4 p.m.?
Yeah, it was like at 12.
All right, come on, you can have 2 minutes.
What is your name?
Brian Hawes.
What is it?
Brian Hawes.
I called you. They said you were.
You said Mr. and Mrs. Hawes.
Yeah, because I was told it was Mr. and Mrs. Hawes by the Mr. Silas over there.
Oh.
It's all right, come on, Brian.
Okay, all right.
You have 2 minutes, okay?
Thank you. I started with Beat the Streets in the 6th grade way back in 2016 or whenever we started, and I remember sitting here doing the exact same thing, and I wouldn't be where I am right now without the program. This program has helped me so much that now I'm giving back, and I am actually the head coach at Nathaniel Green. And to see where the program was when I started to where it is now, it's just night and day. And to take it away from these kids who do so much and work so hard is just unfair to them, that they work so hard every day to come to school, get these good grades, and now they just want to rip this thing away from them that they work so hard to keep. Regardless of what anyone says, these kids deserve the world, and that's what we're trying to do. So me as a coach, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that these kids continue to get the service that they need, whether it's helping with tutoring or just talking to them in general, because again, some of these kids don't have those parents, don't have the rides home or any of these things. I'm concerned for my kids in general because I see the good that they're doing because of wrestling. I started in the 6th grade and I wrestled all the way up to my high school year, and then I wanted to give back because that's how much the program means to me.
Thank you. Okay, we will be moving to items 5.0, school board member comments. I do have, just about like 3 comments. Do want to just thank all of the, people that spoke for public comment, particularly, Beat the Streets. I'll speak with the superintendent and just get some more information about that, that process of what's going on. So I do want to confirm that and just thank all of the young, students here on today for joining us. The superintendent also had mentioned something around the Respect Conference that will be taking place tomorrow. It will in fact be at the CIC building. If board members have not been to the Respect Conference, I encourage you to go. I'm going to show up just around the time where the food is getting served. I'm sorry. I'm joking. But listen, literally, there's a lot of good work. There's a lot of good work taking place for our young people at the Respect Conference. It is from 7:45 a.m. to 2 p.m. One thing that stood out to me in that Respect Conference last time I went, from the time I went before that, was students had went there advocating for sports at Alvarez High School. And by the time the next Respect Conference came, those students had sports in their high school. So a lot of advocacy takes place there, and I truly want to encourage board members to show up. I'll send out a calendar invite tonight. Also, building pathways this Saturday. Please make sure you join, as the superintendent said as well. I would try my hardest to get there. We'll be at PCTA. And then also I want to recognize Bailey Elementary School as well for also being awarded Blue Ribbon. There's a lot of great work taking place here in Providence. And I want to just make sure we recognize that. And a lot of the work that is going on also with our facilities. There's a lot of good work taking place there. I recognize both Chairman Jones and Board Member Hughes for their amazing support on the school building committee. So like I said, tomorrow, CIC building, please try to get there for the Respect Conference. A lot of things happen. I want to thank Dr. Onyea, the Chief of Belonging and Access, for her amazing work as well. Any other school board member comments? There being none, we will move on to items 6.0 presentations. We'll go into it. 6.1, beginning of the year, student data, iReady, ELA, and Math K-9. We have Deputy Superintendent Dr. Dillon and Executive Director of Instruction, Michaela Keegan. How are both of you on this evening?
Thank you.
Please state your names for the record, and then we can get into the presentation.
Dr. Paula Dillon and Dr. Michaela Keegan. I'm gonna actually look on my. So I just want to name that I had a feeling the first 3 goals were secure goals that would be passed by the board tonight. So within our beginning of student outcomes, I have placed a little more attention to grades 3, 4, and 8, just to begin our process of thinking about what it might look like in the future once we have our interim goals in place. I want to remind us about what it is that we're measuring with what students know and are able to do, and we're using iReady to determine this as our baseline for the beginning of the year. So in English language arts, we're looking at phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension, literature, the ability to comprehend literature and informational text. And then for math, the skills that are deeply measured are numbers and operation, algebra, measurement and data, and geometry. I want us to take a little bit of a time trip back to last year. Just as a reminder, last year in September, we had the data hack. And if you recall, our platforms, our internet, our Wi-Fi, we were unable to use those for the beginning of this school year. So when we're looking at the data, the reason I'm bringing that up is last year, we provided the students with about 27 days of instruction prior to assessment. This year, we assess the students as normal as soon as they return back from summer vacation, which means that the start is not apples to apples, as one is with instruction and one is without. So I just want to remind everyone about that. There are 5 major key areas that I just want to draw our attention to before we dive into the data. So we continue to measure student learning carefully to ensure that every student is supported. We want to make sure that we're accelerating learning where necessary, also intervening where needed. Our beginning of year iReady results show that most students are still working below grade level in reading and math, but early indicators suggest a stronger start this year than last, especially in the elementary grades. Early literacy and numeracy are showing promising momentum, particularly in grades K-3, and results highlight the continued need for focused, high-quality instruction in every classroom. Data are being used to guide daily instruction, accelerate learning, and close achievement gaps. Moving on to the iReady reading summary. What you have in the left-hand column are the demographic groups that took iReady and an overall district average with an N size provided for each group. Remember, based upon last year's data breach, that we are comparing in 24-25 students who had around 30 days of instruction compared to this year, students who didn't have instruction yet. It's a really important distinction between 2 years. So you can see how close students are to being at 4 weeks into the school year already at the very start of school. So for example, if we look at the overall, last year, 30 days in, about 15% of the students were showing at or above grade level proficiency in reading. This year, day 1, or very, very close to that, 14.29% are at that same level. Although we are showing that we are ahead of where we are in terms of proficiency and we're continuing to make gains, we still have much work to do as the gaps are still quite large in terms of student performance. It's really important to note that what we're measuring here is on grade level at the beginning of the year. We had these lower numbers at the start of last year as well, but our teachers and our educators worked diligently with their students to support them in accelerating this learning by the end of the year. As I promised, I wanted to break down for us what we will be looking at for our student outcomes. So one of our outcomes that we talked about and landed on tonight was reading at grade 3. So this particular slide dives into the data specifically for grade 3. You can see that our students in grade 3 are about 24% proficient at or above grade 3 level at the start of the year, which is significantly higher than the overall district average. You can see the breakdown across our different demographic groups and the N size in each of those demographic groups as well. So what we're seeing is that about half of our students are 2 or more years below grade level, which is showing us that we need to put acceleration strategies into place as soon as possible for our students. 12% of our grade 3 multilingual learners and 7% of our differently abled students are on or above grade level, which means that we really need to focus on acceleration in these 2 groups particularly. One of the important things to remember, however, is that as we're working successfully with our multilingual learners, by the time they exit, they tend to outperform all of our other groups of students. And so our successful programs with our English language development shine through as we move through the years for the students. Importantly, the baseline was established, again, 27 less instructional days earlier than last year, meaning grade 3 is starting stronger despite less instructional time. And it's a positive early signal that if we continue to accelerate and urgency are maintained, then our students will exceed and surpass last year. Our next level for reading that we want to focus on as a school board is grade 8. So when you look at the percent of 8th graders reading on or above grade level at the start of the year, they mirror the district average for all grades, with about 14% of the students at or above grade level at the very, very start of school. However, you'll also notice that 75% enter 2 or more years below grade level. It's an urgent risk category for high school readiness. Only 3% of 8th grade MLL students and 4% of differently abled students are on or above grade level. When we talk about our pre-K-8 strategy and the need to focus on middle school, the data continues to show that this is a high need area that we need to focus time, talent, and resources on so that we can provide the best outcomes for our students and preparing them for high school entry. Looking at reading by skills level, you can take a look at our chart. I broke it down elementary and middle. We have also subgroup data for our multilingual learners and differently abled students. And then we've broken down the skills where students are 2 or more years below grade level. This is the only chart where you want to see lower numbers than higher numbers. So if you're looking at multilingual learners in phonological awareness, you can see last year at this time, 30% of the students were 2 or more years below grade level after 30 days of instruction. This year, 31% are after really no instruction has been given yet. So that's how to read this chart. You can see as we move down the chart, some of our areas of high need are vocabulary, comprehension of literature and informational text. These are key areas that we need to focus on in order to support accelerated growth for our students. We have been working with our teams and our principals on understanding the importance of what students bring to the classroom with them in terms of their prior knowledge and understanding, and connecting that to vocabulary development to support rich comprehension, acceleration in literature and informational reading. We'll be talking more and more about that as the year progresses. So when we look at our trend versus last year with earlier testing, our middle grades performance has improved slightly, and elementary is very similar to last year. What does this mean? It means that we'll continue to focus on decoding, while accelerating meaning through explicit phonics and word recognition daily alongside grade level text, language scaffolds, vocabulary, and discourse. One of the things that we notice in our classrooms, they're often very quiet. We actually want students talking more, and we want the students to own that learning and be active in their vocabulary use, in their discussion, in their dialogue, and that's what we will continue to do with rapid cycle progress checks to move students out of the 2+ year band. Moving on to math, here is our overall data. You can see that, interestingly, this year, in many of the categories, students outperformed last year, beginning of the year, even though they didn't have any instruction this year or little instruction before they took the assessment. So that is a positive sign. However, our students are still only 9.48% proficient at this time of the year, and over half are 2 or more years below. So although there are positive signs within this data, there is still much work to do. And moving on to grade 4, which is our focus area for our goals, we can see that our grade 4 students outperform the district average, which is a positive sign. However, 2 or more year below is an area a little bit less than half of our students in most of our subgroups are 2 or more years below. And so it's a continued area of need, especially with our MLL students and our differently abled students. Math is slightly stronger than the overall district baseline for this grade. If you remember the reason why this is important, grade 4 math is the gateway to algebra readiness. And algebra readiness is the gateway to high school and post-secondary success. When we look at our skills, many of the skill areas unfortunately have students 2 or more years below grade level at all of our different grade levels. We need to focus on tier 1 acceleration. That means the core, that means what everyone is getting, with daily reasoning and discourse, math language routines, while running short fluency number sense sprints and tight progress monitoring, especially for our multilingual learners and our differently abled students. So what does all the data mean together? Let's talk about the strengths. So early literacy is comparatively stronger. And if we can continue that momentum that is occurring in up through grade 3, then we're likely to see gains, as you have indicated, that integration and connection between these skills across grades, then we're likely to see increases in later grades. Another important area that we have outlined is that we have a strong middle band. There are a number of students just below grade level who, if we are intentional about rapid acceleration, are likely to move to on grade level, and that needs to be very intentionally focused on. We have exemplar classrooms that already demonstrate what high quality tier 1 instruction can achieve, and it's really important that we begin to use them as models to support other teachers, especially our newer teachers who are entering the career. Where do we have needs? Middle grades require the most urgent focus, especially in math fluency and reading comprehension. Again, tying back to our PK8 strategy. Our tier 1 instruction must be redesigned through universal design for learning to meet the need of multilingual learners and cognitively diverse students. And our interventions in later grades are not closing gaps, so we really need to focus on acceleration rather than remediation to close those gaps. So what are our next steps, our next 90 days? You'll see these outlined as we get into your interim goals. We are focusing on tier 1 in reading and math, so academic language, knowledge, and reasoning are intentional in the lesson internalization process. We're going to protect that daily acceleration block in grades 6 to 9 for both reading and math with strongest staff, 0 pull-out interruptions. And we're going to continue to run 4 to 6 week acceleration cycles in K5 in both domains so that we're able to move students from 1 year below to on grade level as quickly as possible. In the appendix, you can see further data broken down by grade spans. I thought you might want to have that information as we move forward.
Any questions by board members? Chairman Jones.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Paula Dillon. I'm just curious in the difference between remediation and acceleration and, kind of how that is previously determined, right? I know I'm familiar with like remediation classes, but I've heard about acceleration, but I've never actually been part of it.
Acceleration really means that you're starting with the assets that the students already have and their strengths, and you're focusing in on the tier 1 core instruction. You're not going below grade level. You're using the skills that they're bringing with them to stay on grade level and to push those skills further faster through more intense, high-intensity work.
Yeah, so it's almost like the kind of surplus versus deficit
Exactly.
approach. Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Any other, Dr. Winston?
Yeah, just a really quick question. I know we've gone over this before, but could you just briefly explain to me again the difference between phonological awareness and phonics?
Sure. I'm going to pass this one over to Michaela. It's really,
So phonics, so our early readers need to learn those skills, right? And there's a progression. And our early readers are focusing on phonics, so sounding out the words, understanding how the letters progress, how they the blends, and the awareness of that is just understanding how they kind of fit together in a more comprehensive way. So there's kind of like a progression, if that makes sense. Not to get too detailed, but so our early readers are like our early literacy teachers are really focused on phonics. We purchased Magnetic Reading Foundation's Mosaico to address those foundational early reading skills that our students need that we're identifying as critical to the success. So you don't even see those measured later on in iReady as skills identified. And so we do that through our Magnetic Reading Foundation's curriculum, and then its counterpart in Spanish, Mosaico, for our K1 and 2 students. And it's an extra block of time that's added onto the literacy block during elementary school. During that literacy block, but an extra 15 to 40 minutes, depending on the day. It's not scripted, but it's very specific on how we instruct them.
with the expectation that by 5th grade, these skills are solidly secure. And then they are actually moved out of the standards once we get into the middle school, because the expectation is that students will have both the awareness and the phonics mastered by those points.
I was curious, because we still have the percentages for the middle school, but not phonological. So phonological awareness drops off, but phonics
that's right.
still continues.
Phonics still continues to be measured. Phonological awareness drops off. Phonics is really expected to be mastered by middle school, but we still check on it because we need to make sure students are not only decoding and they're not only encoding, but they're decoding as well. So we need to make sure that that is not what is getting in the way of the comprehension. So we have to check on it.
I'm sorry, but just really quickly, the distinction, so phonological awareness, could you give me a concrete example of what that would be, as opposed to just, would that be like an awareness of the fact that like the letters GH can sometimes produce an F? Or would it be an awareness of like diphthongs, or like what's the specific, like?
Yeah, so it's where they are simplifying the sounds as they're learning to talk. That's the awareness level.
Okay.
With the phonics, it's actually when they're starting to decode and get into actual words.
So just being able to break, sorry,
It's
but
the
just to be able to
patterns.
break up a word into a set of phonetic phonetic sort of components, and then phonics is actually being able to incorporate that successfully through spelling. Yeah.
I think I had them flipped for you, but as you get into the later elementary grades and then into middle school, we just still monitor it too because words get more complicated. So the rules don't change, but the application of the rules do get more complex as the words they're reading are more complex.
And English doesn't actually.
They will, right.
Also, as a footnote, so, yeah.
Any other board members? Board Member Hughes?
So on slide 12, under needs, you mentioned the universal design for learning. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what that means?
Sure. So we have been working with Dr. Katie Novak, who came and has done some professional development with our principals. And we are carrying that out all year with our teachers as well. So universal design for learning means that we are understanding that before we even begin teaching, what students are bringing with them as assets and how they are best able to demonstrate what they know and are able to do. So we think about that in terms of process and product. So how does the student process and let us know what they are understanding and able to apply from their learning? So for example, if we think about a math class, a student might be taught many different strategies. So they might be taught tape diagrams, they might be taught different ruler skills or manipulatives, they might be drawing. So they're taught all of these different strategies, and the one that is best, that best works for them, the teacher then uses that to allow them to demonstrate what they are able to do. So, and that could be also allowing them to explain verbally what they know and are able to do a traditional math problem, draw it out. So it's both process and product, if that helps. It's about thinking. Universal design was originally an architectural term, so thinking about how we design for the user of the space, how we make it accessible and usable for all of the people who are going to be using that space. Well, universal design for students in the classroom is the same idea. How do we design and make it accessible for all of the students so that they can use the learning, they can use the materials, and then they can show and demonstrate what they know based upon their strengths. It's a very assets-based approach.
One way that we've, so this is not new, we haven't added something new this year as a focus for our teachers. Universal design is just best practice. It's really kind of calling attention and just naming this is what we're going to do. So what this could look like is when we're working with a group of teachers, I might take out a lesson plan that's coming up, on Friday, and ask teachers to look at it and say, where may your students struggle with accessing some of the activities in this lesson? And with that understanding and knowledge, so you know your students' data and you know their learning, right? And you know them as humans. Where do we need to build some ramps for them so they can access this? So it might be, oh, there's some challenging vocabulary. I need to make sure that I address that as part of the lesson so that more students can access it. So that simple question of where do we need to build ramps for students is really helping teachers just look at their lesson plans and seeing where can I make sure all of my students can learn and access this learning.
Thanks. I have one more question. That was great. I love that explanation. Just going back to slide 13 in the summary for the next steps of 90-day execution focus. What does an acceleration block look like? I think Chairman Jones already asked a little bit about the acceleration versus remediation. I'm looking like, what might that look like to protect that in middle school and early high school for math and reading?
Right. So that is one of the strategies that we have been working on with. Some schools call it discovery block, some schools call it win block. So the idea is that within those blocks, students are getting direct instruction from a specialist or through one of our platforms that are designed for grade level acceleration or practice of learning. We're continuing to build this out. This is new for us. We're adding a new program called New Classrooms for Mathematics, which really does zone in on the acceleration aspect. So part of our first step was to build time within the schedule where students would be able to have that acceleration without being pulled out of their core classrooms. It's also being built in as part of station rotation in many places. So within the classroom, the teachers are designing the lesson so that there is independent time that is geared toward the skill that needs to be accelerated and is personalized for the student. So we have personalized pathways for the purpose of that work too.
Thanks, that's helpful. And I think that that's something we've maybe been hearing a little bit from the community. I think we heard a public comment tonight that was maybe feeling like there wasn't enough communication yet in certain schools. I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but just it's helpful to connect what we're talking about here, particularly as we're talking about our goals and really trying to advance those. That's going to necessitate maybe changing some practices and procedures, and just always emphasizing that guardrail piece about the communication and transparency, and more is more. So continuing as you all work so hard with our educators and admins and leaders to help support those folks at the school level as well with communicating with families and students, so that they feel a part of the changes and understand what's happening. Not saying you're not doing that, just emphasizing
No,
doing it.
I think it's fair because this is year one in some of our buildings, where other buildings have been doing this for a couple of years, right? And so I think it's fair. Kaner.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. In some of our buildings, this is their first year. In other buildings, they've been doing it for a little bit. And as we're building in new pieces and new supports in those schools, it really does require our communication. It also will have some growing pains, as anything new does.
And I just want to say, I think that as the board is adopting our goals and all of the interim goals, and we will also, as part of that, be developing a very clear monitoring calendar. So it will be clear when we're going to talk about specific goals, which pieces, and interim outputs, the outputs meeting. I'm going to mess up the terminology and it's late, so I don't want to mess that up. But I think that hopefully will also help the community as a whole to understand and connect all these pieces together. And so hopefully the board can be a place as an additional layer of communication with the community.
Yes, absolutely. And I think another thing that I can do for the board in the future is, instead of just putting the code of the different skills, is to put an example of each skill. I think that might be helpful for the board as well. So I appreciate the question, and it will also probably be very helpful if we bring an early child educator to a future meeting, so that they can really get deep into the early literacy pieces that you might have some questions, especially as we're focusing on grade 3.
Any other board members? Thank you so much, Dr. Dillon and Ms. McKee. All right, we are going to move to item 7.0, 7.1, motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 42-26-5A3, security for the discussion and possible vote on school safety plan. This requires a roll call vote. Clerk, please, can you call the roll?
Mendoza. Mercado. Aye. Williamson.
Aye.
Stevens.
Aye.
Ponce. Aye. Hughes. Aye. Jones. We're in executive session.
Thank you to everyone that has joined us.
Jay's out of town. Here's